Hello world, my name is Lydia. Thank you so much for clicking on this video today. And today we're going to be talking about the latest patch to come to Paladins, which is OB46. This is a pretty average sized patch. Most of the content in this patch is going to be a new champion, along with a couple of minor balance changes. In case you didn't know, Hi-Rez has said that they're planning on releasing a lot of new champions this year, so we're going to be seeing a lot of new champion release patches. If I remember correctly, something like the last 2 or 3 patches have all had new champions added to them, so they're pretty much right on track for what they're planning for the rest of 2017. Alright, so let's jump into the patch notes for OB46. Our new champion is Lex, the Hand of Justice. He is a flanker and he has 2 guns, 1 in each hand. I was able to play a little bit of him on the PTS before recording this video. He is still a little bit buggy. I'm sure the developers will realize it and fix him before his release next week. For example, his left mouse button, dual magnums, fires every 0.7 seconds, dealing 700 damage. When I played on the PTS, each shot dealt 980 damage, and that's not headshots, that's just base shots. So even though his attack speed is a little bit slow, 0.7 seconds is a lot of time, he is a flanker, so you can't expect him to have just this huge burst of attack speed, especially when his basic ability, his left mouse button, does so much damage. His right mouse button is in pursuit. It will begin rapidly firing your magnums at the nearest target to you with perfect aim, dealing 1050 damage over 1.5 seconds, and it automatically aims to the nearest target, including deployables. So basically what this does is the enemy that is nearest to you, it will automatically lock on to them and fire 1050 damage over 1.5 seconds. Now you're able to move around when you pop this ability, and even if you move around, it will stay on that enemy. Now you have to note the line that it says automatically aims at the nearest target, including deployables. Now say you're trying to go for like a Barrack or an Inara. So if you're trying to aim at them and you hit in pursuit and they immediately pop off either Inara's wall or Barrack's turrets or something like that, Lex is going to automatically lock on to whatever is closest. So if those deployables go between you and Barrack or Inara or somebody that has deployables, it's going to lock onto that deployable. So it's not going to go through shields and go through that Barrack, it's going to hit the deployable. While it's kind of a bummer that In Pursuit doesn't go through shield, it's good to know that it might be a good idea to pick a champion that has deployables as kind of a counter to Lex. Next, his Q is Retribution. You have a Retribution target that is revealed to you when nearby. Killing your target grants additional credits if they are on a kill streak. Activating Retribution randomly selects a new target. Enemies that kill you automatically become your new target. So what happens when you spawn in a game is one of your enemies will automatically be targeted with Retribution. Now what will happen is you'll get extra credits for killing them if they're on a kill streak. And say for example Retribution is on an enemy that doesn't have a kill streak, you can hit your Q again every 30 seconds to randomly select another enemy that may or may not have a kill streak. And like it says, enemies that kill you will automatically become your next target when you spawn. Alright, next is F, his Combat Slide. Activate it to quickly slide forward in the direction you are facing. So like most F abilities, it's for escape. And he's a flanker, so he wants to have pretty decent amount of movement speed and a pretty decent amount of escape. Now one thing that is possible to do is you can fire off your magnums or your In Pursuit while you're in Combat Slide. I tried it a couple times in the PTS and it's a little tricky and finicky to get a hold of, but if you hit your Combat Slide and you're In Pursuit, because In Pursuit will automatically target whoever's closest to you, that could work better as long as there isn't a wall or something in your way. His ultimate, his E ability, is the Law. After a charge-up delay, releases an infallible surge of judgment that executes targets in range at or below 65% health. So it will automatically kill anyone in that range that's on or below 65% health. Now, if you hit targets that are above 65%, it'll only deal 600 damage and they'll be slowed for 1 second. And it also requires a line of sight and it doesn't travel through shields. I think this ability is going to be really strong in team fights that are on the payload, either the spawn or on the actual payload. If your team can get the enemies whittled down to under 65% health, and say they're all cluttered up in the same spot on the payload, Lex can come in and completely wipe them all out. kind of comparable to something like a Torvald ultimate ability where he can just launch them basically off the map. What Lex can do is, if everyone is under 65% health, he can basically just run in and completely demolish them. Now, like I said earlier, he's a little bit buggy on the PTS right now. I feel like some of his abilities were not acting as they should. Some of his loadout cards didn't really spawn correctly, but this is the point of him only being on the PTS right now, so they can clean up those bugs before he is released next week. A little bit of my concern about Lex is that he's going to be compared way too much to Androxus. He doesn't have the movement that Androxus does, but he definitely has a lot more damage. His health pool is actually really strong for something like a flanker. Usually flankers are a little bit squishy because they want to go in and out and not be hit at all. So that's why you wouldn't want their health pool too strong, because then they would be a little too OP and a little, too much of a strong champion. Personally, I don't really like the Retribution ability. I think it's a little bit pointless in it. But if you rack up your credits, you can really turn Lex into a beast. I'll go over just his legendary cards real quick. His default is Heroism, gains a 25% attack speed for 2 seconds while you're using Combat Slide. So like I said earlier, you can use your Combat Slide with your Mangums and with your In Pursuit. So what this does is it will gain your attack speed, which is already really slow, while you're using that Combat Slide. Death Hastens, your weapon shots deal 40% more damage to targets over 65% health. So you kind of see the trend with the whole 65% health on your enemies for Lex. So whittling down your enemies with your Death Hastens card could leave you so far open to be able to use your ultimate ability much more often. And his last legendary card is Discovery. Your target is also revealed to your teammates if they are revealed to you. I forgot to touch on this earlier, but with Retribution, when an enemy is targeted, they're also revealed to you through walls, so you can see them throughout the map. And then with this Discovery card, the target is also revealed to your teammates. So it really depends on how much you value vision in the game. Some maps are pretty open that vision isn't as that big of a deal, but there are a lot of maps where, especially if you're playing against even something like 2 flankers, you might want to grant as much vision as you possibly can. Alright, I'm not going to go over all of his other cards. You're more than welcome to check those out if you want. I will have a link to these patch notes down below if you want to take a look for yourself. So let's move on to the general game changes. I noticed this earlier. For miscellaneous, owned cards may now be disenchanted for Essence. Note that doing this removes the card from your collection and will deactivate any decks the card is currently in. So this is another way to gain Essence. If you have a card that you never use, that you don't even know why you had it, it could be a default card that you were given, or it could be a card that you got in a chest that you just really don't need, that you don't want to use. You can basically sell them back, if you want to think of it like that, and gain Essence to be able to use on a card that you actually want, or, like a legendary card. So I think that's a really great addition. It's just another way to earn Essence. They fixed a couple of bugs. And moving down to customizations, you've got your Lex, pretty much your basic skin, and there's a new Fernando skin. Now, if you've been keeping up with the patch notes, kind of the trend for these basic patches has been a new champion, a new skin, a new map, and just a couple of balance changes. So we've already got the new champion, and now here's the new skin. Now, if you've never seen one of my Paladins videos, this is my biggest complaint about the game, is that there is no diversity with skins. Skins are such a huge moneymaker with the game. People love the customizations, they love the fun of it, and Paladins just doesn't really have the skin diversity right now, but they are growing on it, and I'm really happy with it. So in OB46, they've added this new Fernando skin, FN01 Helios. And while I don't really personally play Fernando, it's probably one of the coolest skins in the game right now, and I have to show it off. Here it is. This is the FN01 Helios skin for Fernando. You can get this skin out of the Helios chest that they'll be adding, obviously. I'm just really impressed with the artwork and the color combinations that they've added. It's a really cool skin, and there's also a voice pack that comes with it too that is pretty awesome. He's actually not Latin in the voice pack, and it's really cool to hear some of his voice changes in it. So that's the new Fernando skin. I highly suggest picking it up, especially if you're a Fernando player. It's just all around really cool. Alright, moving on to maps. They've added another co-op map called Minefield. I actually did not have time to queue this up and play it on the PTS today. I was in queue for I think 3 minutes, and I'm just so impatient that was way too long for me, so I haven't been able to play it yet. But this map, Minefield, has a rogue band of 5 Kinesses that have overclocked their oppressor mines to deal lethal amounts of damage. Tread lightly across Primal Court as there are mines behind every corner. So you're obviously just playing on the Primal Court map, and you're going to be playing against 5 Kinesses, and the oppressor mines can basically kill you. So that's going to be really fun to play. I really like the co-op maps that they're adding. They've been adding these for the past like 3 or 4 patches, and they're just a fun alternative of something different to play in the game. Kind of like a brawl you would see in other games. All right, now let's get to some of the balance changes. There aren't a lot, and honestly, I haven't really looked at these, so these are going to be really base first impressions. Alright, Androxus increases base movement speed from 360 to 380. That's not too bad. As a flanker, you would expect him to have a heap ton of movement speed, but he's probably one of the slow flankers in the class. Barrick's Blunderbuss, his damage was reduced from 600 to 500. Tinkerin now increases the Blunderbuss damage by 100, not too bad, and his cards were renamed. So this is a very quality of life change. Barrick is fairly strong in the meta right now as a frontliner. Sometimes he can be considered a little too OP, so I think this change is pretty necessary. Fixed a bug on one of Buck's cards. Cassie's dodge roll gets a reduced cooldown from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. Cassie got a big change a couple of patches ago, especially with her dodge roll, and especially when the legendary cards came out. They moved stuff that was in her base pack to the legendary cards and kind of like vice versa a little bit. So kind of reducing the cooldown for a dodge roll gives you more use out of it because it's probably one of her strongest abilities, and the stuff that you can stack on top of dodge roll makes it really strong and makes it really useful. Drogoz reduced his health from 2,500 to 2,400, reduced his ult charge rate by 10%, and fixed one of his legendary cards. Drogoz got a change, I want to say, in the last patch or the patch before that. He got a little bit beefy. Reducing his health really doesn't make that much of a difference since it's only by 100. Fernando's Immortal, which is his ultimate ability, reduces the activation time from 0.3 seconds to 0.1 seconds. Okay, cool. So his ultimate will basically be activated much quicker. I know 0.2 second difference doesn't sound like that much, but in a game it does, trust me. And Formidable increases his health threshold from 30 to 40% and increases the healing value from 40 to 60%. So this makes him a little more sustainable as a frontliner. Personally, I haven't seen a lot of Fernando's played in the frontline class lately. Kind of 2-tank is the strong meta right now, and Fernando is kind of rarely picked as the main frontliner. He's usually, I guess, more of a bruiser, if you want to use that term for it. So increasing his health threshold and his healing value kind of makes him a little more sustainable as a strong frontliner. Grok got his lightning staff damage reduced from 82 to 75 per hit. That's not bad. I mean, he's a healer. He shouldn't really do that much damage anyway. Inara, which was the newest champion that we saw last week, her health was increased from 4,400 to 4,500, not bad. And Earthen Guard was reduced from 12 seconds to 10 seconds cooldown. Seismic Crash increases the damage from 200 to 500. I think that is probably a pretty big change. A really good combination is to immediately put up her wall and then put Seismic Crash right next to it in case there's enemies on the other side to do a lot of damage. The range of Seismic Crash is fairly small, maybe right about the size of the payload spawn point. So increasing the damage, if you get stuck on it, you can get pretty demolished in it. So increasing the damage of it in that small area kind of evens it out. One of Kinessa's cards got renamed. Makoa's Ancient Range no longer grants CC immunity. That may have something to do with his loadout cards, or maybe his legendary cards. I'm not sure if I remember correctly. Maldamba's Mending Spirits increases the remote proximity distance from 1 to 1.5. Pip's Side Tanks reduced cooldown from 1, 2, 3, 4 to 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2.5. Okay, so it's reducing the cooldown of that. All right. And Evil Mojo, they fixed a bug on it where players who died while affected would see their weapons left eye. I've actually had that happen to me a couple times, and I've always wondered if that was ever going to get fixed. And Torvald's protection, his cooldown is increased from 7 seconds to 9 seconds. You really don't want to have a Torvald that just completely spams protection, so increasing the cooldown kind of evens it out. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for this patch review of OB46. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give me a like, comment, and sub down below. What do you think of these patch notes? How do you think Lex is going to fit into the meta? We've gotten a decent amount of new champions lately. We've got a pretty good amount of new damage dealers. We've got a decent amount of new tanks. We've got a pretty decent amount of new flankers. It is probably time for a new healer now that I think about it, so maybe we'll get a new healer champion next week. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you missed the patch review for OB45, you can check out this video right here. And also, I just released a video on how legendary cards work. Those were a big change in Season 1, and there's a little bit of confusion on how it works and how the new currency in the game works. If you want to check that video out, you can see right over here. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video, and we'll see you next time.